Can you tell me about a time where the team dropped the ball? Like you did a product launch and there was something that you missed?
Sometimes there can be typical misunderstandings, right? Where you think that one team has full control over something, and then they presume that someone else has full control. And then it ends up being no one actually paid attention to what happened here. We had that on one of the software features where there had been kind of a misunderstanding in what experience that we're going to get out. And then this was discovered when we had a release readiness review. But then again, it's good then that this has been a learning for us, right? We were like, when I joined, we were about a little more than 20 people in the whole company. And I think we were maybe between 10, 15 in product. And through those, it was very easy then to have an overview for everyone, right? And as we grow, we see that we need to put more structure, more process into things so that we don't drop the ball on certain things. But I think one of the benefits we have is also that I noticed that we have a really high degree of trust amongst everyone, right? So
Mm.
that also helps that people are not afraid of conveying their concerns and they're not afraid of conveying their ideas. And I think when you have that, you kind of quickly address things because people just go up to each other. Hey, have you thought about this? Or I'm concerned about so and so. And there's a lot of trust and respect for each other's discipline.
Yeah. So like what I'm hearing is that sometimes, and imagine at Cisco, it was a lot more of a problem that some teams have a little bit more influence and sway over the direction of the project, which allows them to ignore other aspects of the business. It, what you said about just having the ability to like voice concerns and have like productive conflict sounds a lot like the idea of like psychological safety. Like Simon Sinek writes a lot about this and how you need to have the ability to voice your opinion and have your opinion validated, even if no one moves in that direction. Like being able to say stuff and then the rest of the team, even if it's uncomfortable for them, they're able to engage critically with what you just said so that you're able to have a productive dialogue. Like what
Yeah.
So, yeah, I guess walk me through, like, how do you build that culture of psychological safety? Because when you have, like, hardware, software, a lot of moving parts, that's a harder problem space than most SaaS companies, right? So, like, how do you do that?
Yeah. So how we build that trust, I think it comes from multiple aspects, actually. One is making sure that we actively listen to each other. And let's say we have a challenge and we meet up in a meeting room. Then it's also important that I try to facilitate that every voice is heard, right? That we make sure that everyone chimes in. And I think for us, it also becomes very natural because it's been part of the way that we work continuously. We have these tools that are kind of a retrospective, where it's a formal way of discussing what's working and what's not working. And those type of methods helps people open up and talk about what's working. And it can be anything, right? Usually we start out with, okay, it can be anything from we need better coffee in the coffee machine to the process that we're using is not ideal. But when people experience in that type of setting that it is valued to raise their concern and also communicate what they believe should be improved. And when that is both listened to and taken constructive by everyone that is there, then that helps build that culture of trust and where it's okay to talk about challenges and good ideas, right? That should come up.
Yeah, a a lot of people don't realize that a big part of the work is the emotional labor that goes into how hard this is, like, actually expending the emotional labor, and when I think about people feeling seen, heard, understood in a very tough environment where you're discussing trade-offs, like, every day, every meeting's, "Okay, what do we give up?" Especially at a startup or, like, a smaller company. you you are intentionally neglecting things. And I've learned that just listening to someone and saying, "Oh, yeah, that sounds hard," but not changing my behavior at all, that doesn't count as, um, making them feel seen and heard. And I've come up with this personal rule that if someone is concerned about something, I'll meet with them in a one-on-one environment, after
Mm.
the group meeting, not the place to talk about their concern, and then actually take an hour to like your concern, make sure I understand it, and then as their emotions de-escalate, that makes them feel heard. Maybe I don't act upon that concern, or maybe we find out it's not a concern. They just needed someone to walk them through their thoughts and help them think through things. And then other times it might be a valid concern, and then you have to take that further and just be like, "Okay, I'll look into it." Actually go track down and see if that's a risk.
Yeah.
Behavior, making emotional effort, not saying, "Hey, yeah, that's an interesting thought," and then that's the end of the conversation in the meeting, and, you don't talk about it again. I think
Yeah.
trust comes from actually changing your behavior.
I think that's a great point, and I so agree. And it depends on what type of concern it is as well, right? Because some concerns are best one to one and just to understand it. And then they're not understanding exactly. Then it's easy to make assumptions, right? But then if you go deeper into the details and if both understand each other's why, they mean something. It's almost like sometimes it helps just drawing things out, right? Or going layers down. Then I also feel like it's easier for everyone to align on the same understanding on the approach, right? And there's also one other thing that I think is helpful when building trust is that when as many as possible from different angles are part of setting the product strategy and chiming in on that. Everyone understands then both why we're building the product we're building, but they also have ownership to what the product is, kind of the answer to why, right? And when people are also part of the product development and product strategy process, I feel like they care even more about the product itself. And it also helps build trust that their voice is important into the product strategy.